Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Games New and Old. I'm David Rodriguez.
I'm Hillary Rodriguez, and today we're going to do another versus video. Today we are doing Dice Throne versus Dice Masters.
Yes, indeed. So Dice Throne was published in 2018 by Roxley Games. It was designed by Nate Chantelier. It looks French. I don't know. And the artist is Manny Tremblay. Dice Masters was published in 2014 by Wizkids and was designed by Mike Elliott and Eric Lang. The artists, there's too many to even begin. There's a lot. I don't even know. There's a lot of sets. Yeah. So, but there are artists, and a lot of them are real good. So we'll go with that. So the reason why I wanted to do this particular comparison is in two separate spaces. I think one was on a video and one was on a podcast. People mentioned what they were talking about, like what game replaced what other game, right? Because that's often a discussion in gaming. And in two different spaces, I heard people say that for them, Dice Throne replaced Dice Masters. And it got me kind of thinking about that. Do I think that anything replaced anything among those two? Do I think that it even makes sense that one would replace the other one? And I was like, I should stop thinking. I'm in the middle of work and it's distracting me. So instead of doing that, we're just going to talk about that. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I guess very basic overview of these two games. Dice Throne. You can get them in sets of either just like, it'll come with two characters, or you can get like a big box that'll have like a whole bunch of characters. They have like a couple different fantasy sets. They have a Marvel set. They have a Santa versus Krampus set. And you'll pick a character. It'll have its own deck of cards, its own special dice, and you're basically rolling dice, trying to get certain combos that are on your character card that will let you attack your opponent. You'll play cards out of your hand that'll do various things to help you out or to mess up your opponent. And you just keep doing that till someone is defeated. Very basic overview of Dice Throne.
Where Dice Masters is kind of like a deck building game, except for it's with dice. Before you start, you pick out character cards, and they'll have 1 to 4 dice available for that card. And as you're rolling the basic dice, you can use those dice to buy your character dice, and your dice pool gets bigger as you play.
And the fighting that one works kind of like a Magic the Gathering or something, where you're shooting to attack your opponent. You'll put your dice forward with a certain character, and they might choose to block you with like one of their characters or a couple of their characters. But that's kind of the basic gist of it. Dice Masters is distributed in a different way. For a long time, it was a collectible game. Like you get a starter set that would have some cards and like 2 dice for each of the cards in there, or each of the characters in there. And then you could buy booster packs that would have like 2 cards and the die that goes with each one of those. They've since changed it a couple times. I'm not even really sure what the current distribution model is, to be honest with you. So I think they're just trying various things. But, I don't know if I'd really even say it's a collectible game anymore. It's just kind of it's just different how they're doing it. Now, both these games are basically 2-player games. I think there might be ways to play both of them multiplayer. Like I know Dice Throne, you can do like a team thing.
Dice Throne has a team. They also have like an adventure, or I think is what they call it. I'm not sure if it's 1 versus many or co-op.
I think it's just co-op.
I think it's just co-op.
We haven't played that one. So.
And Dice Masters, I believe you can play. I think they have a special rule to do like teams, but it's really mostly just one-on-one.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned the different kind of genres characters come from in Dice Throne. With Dice Masters, it's kind of a similar thing in a way, but they have like very specific IPs that they're choosing.
Yeah, they have a lot of IPs, so pretty much for the most part, if you name an IP, there's probably a set out there for you. Yeah. They definitely cover DC, they cover Marvel, D&D, Warhammer, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Ninja Turtles, WWE.
That might be it.
I feel like there's one more that I'm forgetting, but yeah, there's a lot. So yeah, there's definitely a lot more options for you in Dice Masters than there is Dice Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with those sets, too, is you can combine them. So if you want to have a Space Marine 40k on your team, and you want to have Leonardo from the Turtles, and you want to have Wolverine and Batman, and a Beholder, whatever. I mean, you can mix these up as much as you want to. That's not how we tend to play usually, but you can certainly do that. Yeah. And I know for like organized play, when they do that, that's what people will do. They'll get, cards from different sets and make their team work that way.
Yeah, and I would say that that's one of the biggest differences between the two games is that in Dice Thrones, you're just playing as one character and rolling dice to see what that character does. Where in Dice Masters, you have multiple characters, and so in each dice represents a character. So
yeah. Now I want to talk a little bit about the art in this game, and it is hard because again, Dice Masters is all over the place with their art. But Dice Throne is not. Dice Throne is all Manny Tremblay art, and I really like his art style. His characters have a very distinct look. Even in the Marvel sets, they still had him do those characters, so it wasn't just like they pulled pics from the comic books. I really enjoy the look of those. I think they're really striking characters.
Yeah, it's really well done. Manny has a very specific art style, so it all looks cohesive.
Yeah, whereas Dice Masters is not the same because they are picking or pulling pictures, I think, directly from the comics or from like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon or whatever. So you can have a pretty wide variety of different art styles there, which some people will be bothered by that and some won't. It doesn't particularly bother me, but it could bother some people. I think, I've not looked at sales numbers, but I think pretty clearly Dice Throne is the bigger hit overall as far as like sales. I know a lot more people have played that, or at least I hear them, than play Dice Masters. Dice Masters is a collectible game, but it didn't become popular everywhere. Like I'm not really even aware of organized play in our area. Yeah. There might have been some at some point. I just don't know about it.
It seems very like a very regional game, and then like. I think because they changed like the different ways that they distribute the game, there ended up being a lot of confusion. Like there was a local game store that was very close to us that at one point told us that it was completely discontinued, and that was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a few sets since it was discontinued. They're very bad at discontinuing their stuff if that's what their plan was.
But yeah, so it's one of those things where I think Dice Thrones, it was just the way the game came out, it was easier to distribute.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting because Dice Throne is kind of competing with other board games where I think Dice Masters is competing with like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon because of how at least the initial way they distributed it was. And I think at this
it also has a similar play to it. Play and feel to it. Yeah. Like Dice Thrones feels more like a board game to me than, and Dice Masters feels more like a collectible, like fighting card game. Yeah,
I do kind of wonder if Dice Masters had started out just coming out with a set, like here's all the dice you need for the set. There you go. Instead of being collectible, if it would have been a different case, if it would have been more like competing with the different board games rather than, because I know the first time I saw it, like the first set was Avengers versus X-Men, which is a theme I really like, but they looked at that and I was like, collectible, and I don't understand how these dice are going to do something that is thematic, and I don't know if it hurt it because they weren't going for that audience, but I do wonder if it would have made a difference had they gone about it a different way. So it was also like not really a reskin because they did change some stuff. They had a game called Quarriors, which is sort of like the precursor to Dice Masters, which they did release, I believe, more like a board game. So I don't know why they decided to go the collectible. I guess they probably thought that's real big money if it catches on.
Yeah.
So it is kind of different as far as that goes. Now, I don't know, like I was trying to think if I think one is more complicated in terms of learning to play it than the other. Like they're both, I think, fairly light games, but I guess maybe Dice Masters might be a little more complicated. Maybe
Dice Masters, I think, definitely can be more complicated because you're dealing with more like characters, and the fact that you are adding dice to your pool round after round, typically. Where in Dice Thrones, you just have 5 dice that you're rolling, and you can re-roll 3 times, and then the cards that you have might change things a little bit, but for the most part, it's just rolling dice and seeing what moves you are able to do. Where in Dice Masters, it's more thinking about, like, okay, like, do I want to use this character, or do I want to re-roll that dice to hopefully unlock this other character? There's more options, and so it can, definitely have a lot more thought paralysis.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you do have to make your team, and if you really want to get down and try to figure out how these different characters will interact with each other and possibly create combos for you, that's where, like, I don't think it's in the base rules as much, but it's more in, like, the complexity of the cards or characters that you have.
Yeah.
If you play as Captain Marvel in Dice Throne, it's always going to be kind of the same. I mean, you might roll differently, but the way she plays overall is going to be the same. But if you have, like, a Captain Marvel card in your Dice Masters team, and then you swap out some of the other cards, like, suddenly everything is fitting together differently. So that could be kind of a big difference. It's hard to, like, I was going to talk about, like, how expensive or not it was to get into these games. That's really hard to do because they both have so many ways that you can do it, or at least previously Dice Masters, you could buy a starter set at least and get you kind of going on it, and that was, like, only, like, I don't know, between $15 and $20. But even Dice Throne, you could buy a set that just has the 2 characters. It's not too much either. I think it's around 20, 25 or something. So they're both pretty easy to get into, or you can go big and just get, like, tons of stuff with both of them. So I don't know if I can really compare them as far as that goes. I guess if you're getting the old collectible sets, it could kind of bother you that you're going to get repeats that you don't need.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And then you also run into, like I said, the characters might have a certain dice limit, but, like, generally you can take 1 to 4 dice on the card. And so you might want to have take all 4 dice for that card, but you only have 3 dice available, so you can only take 3. So.
Yeah, that's true. One nice thing, though, is if you, with Dice Masters, is if you say, like, you've got all one particular set, and you're like, I want to have Wolverine in my team, there's usually a few different versions of that same character that you can put out. So if you don't like the way this particular card plays, you don't like the rules for that one, there might be a different version of him that you could put out that would fit what you want a little better.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, most of the sets had 3 cards for each character.
I was trying to remember it was 3 or 4.
Not every character, but most of the characters had at least 3 different versions.
Yeah.
And then basically just different costs with different abilities.
Yeah.
So, but they use the same dice.
Yeah. Now, there is something to say about how in both of these games the sets work with each other, I think. Like, Dice Throne, everything works together really seamlessly. You can play Captain Marvel versus, like, the Moon Elf. I think that's one of the fantasy characters, whatever. No problem. There's no weird stuff. You're just playing your characters. That's it. You play Santa versus Captain Marvel, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Like, totally fine. And you can, as I mentioned, do that with Dice Masters too, but some of the stuff gets kind of weird. Like, it's been a while since I played with one of the D&D sets, but those they call, like, I think they call their basic dice something different. And your heroes can actually level up when they defeat, like, a monster. And that gets a little confusing, because if I'm playing just purely a D&D set, right? And you're playing a DC set, do your villains count as monsters? Do your basic things count as NPCs? Like, I'm not sure. I think in organized play, they don't. But then you have to say, okay, well, if they don't, then my D&D card is missing part of its abilities. So is this what I want? Like, it's weird. I think they should just say, like, all the bad guys in this set are analogous to all the bad guys in this set, and we're using different terminology to be thematic, but these are, like, I think they should make them all the same, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyway, regardless, it is kind of like you might either figure out what the organized play people did with that, or you'll have to house roll it for whatever feels best for you. It works. It certainly can be done, and it's meant to be done. It's just not perfectly seamless.
Dice Masters, it definitely feels like it's plays best if you're using all from the same set, basically. And especially you and your opponent in some of the sets, because, like, they'll be like, oh, like, if you have, like, in, I think it's the World Finest set, you get bonuses if you have, all the Superman characters, and then, like, you get special attack powers if you're going against specific villains. And so it's like there's certain iconographies that are on the cards that, really just go with that one set. Yeah. And so it can be a little bit tricky if you're combining sets.
Yeah. And organized play people will strongly disagree that you should stick to one set, but that's what we usually do when we play that one. We each pick like one set to pull our team from, and and we might pick different sets from each other, but like our specific team will all be from one set, and we just kind of go at it that way. Because
and occasionally we'll take one set and we'll just do a draft pool.
Yeah.
And those games are actually sometimes the funnest, because then we're not taking the same characters that we always take. And
yeah, that's true. All right, so let's talk about variety in these two games. I think they're both games with a lot of variety, but I think Dice Masters really stomps Dice Throne.
Yeah,
in terms of variety.
If you're talking variety, Dice Masters has it hands down. Dice Throne has a good mix of characters, but it's really basically fantasy and Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I mean, you take all the current Dice Throne sets that are out, the characters, like one set of Dice Master probably has more different characters with their own variety. And granted, each one character doesn't do as many things as one character in Dice Throne, but you're combining all these things. And so, like I mentioned earlier, if you're playing this one character, what you have around it and your other characters is going to affect how that one plays too. So just the sheer variety is, it's hard to go against Dice Masters, honestly. And Dice Throne, as varied as it is, it can't compete with that in that area. So we're just talking about which one we think is more fun and why. Sure. Are we to that point? I think we've covered pretty much all the nitty-gritty basics of it. So, what do you think?
For me, I really enjoy both games. And Dice Throne also has a special place for me because I believe it's the designer. The company itself, they are based out of my hometown. So, I don't have a actual personal connection to any of the people in the game that I know of, but, since it's from my hometown, that always kind of makes me like, oh, yay, it's a little connection. That being said, I think one of the things that we didn't talk about is replayability, and I feel like Dice Masters has much more replayability than Dice Throne does. Just because with Dice Throne, you are just playing the one character. Your deck of cards is the same each time. You're shuffling it, and so the cards you get might be different. But if you're playing the same character, the games are gonna start to kind of feel the same. And even changing out the characters after a while, the games still kind of feel the same to me, because there's differences and the characters do feel different, but the gameplay wise, it starts to kind of feel the same. Where in Dice Masters, because you are playing different characters that you're playing, theoretically you can have 8 different characters on your board at one time. Very unlikely, but theoretically you could do it, each with their own powers and abilities. And so the feel of it is a lot more epic and can feel a lot different, even just by changing out 1 or 2 of those characters, or sometimes even not even changing the characters, but just reevaluating the how you set out your dice. Because you only have 20, if I remember correctly, it's 20 dice to allocate. Yeah,
I think that's right, something like that.
And so you might have one character where you only gave them 2 dice on the first game, but then you reevaluate and you give them 3 or 4 dice the next game, and even just reallocating the dice can make a big difference and change the feel of the game. And so to me, Dice Masters has a lot more replayability. Yeah,
I'm kind of in the same boat. So I think Dice Throne is a great game. It's really, it's really a lot of fun. It's very popular for a very good reason. I'm very excited for the X-Men set to come out. That's going to be awesome. So again, I want to make it clear. It is a great game. That being said, I don't think, to me, it even comes close to toppling Dice Masters. Not... Like, they're just not even in the same arena. Like, it's a big difference. If I had to just pick just one to play, and I couldn't play the other one ever again, I would not hesitate to Dice Masters. It's just what it's going to be. Dice Masters is a little harder to get out and play because you can't just grab your thing with your character and go. You have to pick your team and all that. But even that, unless you want to put like tons and tons of ridiculous on into it, it's not that hard. The variety is insane. I talked about earlier how I looked at those dice. I'm like, they're not going to be able to capture the character with those dice. They capture the characters with those dice. I don't understand. It seems like it's impossible, but they do. Like, the characters oftentimes feel like how they should, within the confines of what the rules can do. It's crazy. If she picks certain kinds of teams, like, I know I'm up against like a weird like puzzle of like chain reactions that I have to try to deal with, and some things are more brute force, and so, like, it's crazy. Like, I was baffled when I saw that people said that Dice Throne replaced Dice Masters to them. One, because I don't think the games are that similar despite them having similarities. Also, just like, did you play Dice Masters though? Because Dice Throne's, again, very, 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 very good, but
yeah, another, I think, big difference between the two of them in the gameplay that we also didn't really talk about or touch on a whole lot is, like, when you're playing your dice, like in Dice Thrones, you roll your dice, you're going to be doing this much damage. Your opponent might be able to do a defense roll. They might not, depending on what kind of attack you did. And then the defense roll, it may either block some of that damage, or it might just do some damage back or something. Where in Dice Masters, I feel like you have a lot more thought. Yeah, I feel like it kind of goes back to a little bit of the difficulty of the games, where like Dice Thrones, it's really just kind of rolling dice, seeing what you get, and go and making a decision based off of the card, your abilities. Where in Dice Masters, you're rolling your dice, you're seeing which character you want to put out. If you want, you have a lot more options in what you do, but then also as an opponent, you have more options because you can be like, okay, well, I'm going to block this one, or I'm going to let that damage through because then that gets rid of that dice for a while. Yeah. And so there's where if I block it, there's a chance that dice is going to come right back out next turn.
Yep.
And so in a way, it like kind of goes, to me, it kind of goes to like Dice Throne is more like checkers and Dice Masters is a little bit more like chess.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think, because, like I said, the Dice Throne, you roll your dice, you see what you get. I mean, you can do rerolls, of course, and then you do that thing, that's it. But with me, like, if I put out these characters, which are my dice, like, I can attack you, but do I want to attack you? Because if I attack you, you're going to do this other thing. But if you do that other thing, I can do this other thing. And, like, really, like, you're trying to figure out what they're going to likely do and, like, how you can respond to that. There's so much more going on. And, again, a game that's not that hard to learn, honestly. I'm baffled by those people who said, and again, I feel like I'm insulting Dice Throne, which I like Dice Throne really a lot, but yeah, I think Dice Masters is leagues beyond it and beyond most games, honestly. So,
well, it's like I like both games a lot, and I think they play so differently. There's definitely room, on the game shelf to have both. But I agree. If I had to choose one and could only pick one, it would be Dice Masters because of all the things that we said.
Yep, so. Absolutely. So there you have it. 2 great games. We like Dice Masters better. Don't have Dice Throne replace it. Play Dice Throne. Don't replace your Dice Masters. They're different. Dice Masters is a little better. or a lot better. But they're both great. So anyway, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you agree, disagree, what have you. I like to hear that kind of thing. Be nice. Don't tell us we're stupid. Because we're right. So we can't be stupid. But tell us if you disagree. That's fine. I won't get mad at you. It's great. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe. Click the little bell icon so you get up at the next time we put out a video. Otherwise, look forward to see you all around the table again at All Games New and Old.
Bye.
Hey, you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like it, share it, and click this button to subscribe. If you like that one, you might also like this one.
Or this one.
I cannot believe what I did in that one. Holy cow.
I can.
Of course you can. All right. Anyway, we'll see you around the table.
Bye.
Bye.